that redefines our relationship with our land, resources, and people. For us, a just transition in micro-jobs means investing in sustainable livelihoods that do not merely replace the oil economy, but elevate the quality of life for all.
We're going to hear the voice of an activist who's been working in the region for decades. And his presentation is titled After Oil, We Flourish.
The Yar'Adua Delta isn't a teaching ecological time bomb. The bomb has already exploded. We had no clue that we were next in line to receive. The footprint of oil had already been stamped on these shores, but the oil fight was over and for. We found sand jaws and foreign merchants and mercenaries burnt down our castle way back in 1895. As frontmen refused the movement and exploited the market with no sense of responsibility or accountability. Fast forward to 1995, and the gallows of the Port Harcourt prison swung.
Please allow me a round of applause. Thank you. At this point, we'll invite the panelists to the front. First, it's a pleasure to invite Dr. Priscilla Achapa, Founder and Executive Director, Women Environmental Program, Nigeria. It's also a pleasure to invite, and I'm sure when you see him, you would recognize him, Mr. Nimo Basi, Executive Director of Health of Mother Earth Foundation, Nigeria. Morning comes after oil. It's also my pleasure to invite Mr. Benjamin Obalo, Technical Assistant to the DG of the National Council on Climate Change, Nigeria. Please a round of applause for him. And finally, last but not the least, it's a pleasure to invite to the panel Chief Mrs. Ebiyemi Omasheye, who is the Olujimi of Warri. Please a round of applause. It's a pleasure to have you, ma'am. So I'll quickly go to the questions. And we'll have to make it just one round because we don't have time. So my first question is to Chief Ebiyemi, the potential socioeconomic impacts of energy transition on the local population, especially considering, and you got to tell us a bit about the context, the historical context of oil extraction in the region. And can you share insights how traditional leadership can play a role in fostering both community participation and engagement in the energy transition process in the Niger Delta?
Welcome everyone, we're looking forward to this meeting here. Let me start by saying that we promise that oil producing areas have been seriously impacted. When I say we have been impacted negatively. When we talk about the socio-economic reactions, I would say that we cannot go forward without also impacting these communities that have been impacted negatively by the oil industry. We have to now positively impact them Because without these communities, I don't see how we can move in the direction we are facing. Actually, depends on people. Because they have actually been in the forefront of whatever positive or negative impact. So now, with the transition process, we have to make sure that they are not marginalized or excluded from whatever it is, be it education or infrastructure, healthcare, energy access, economic diversification. A just energy transition in the process should take account to make sure that a positive influence is felt, especially in the Niger Delta. Without a positive influence being felt, the people will not, they will not relate to it. They will not grasp it. Because right now, I speak for Warri Kingdom. We are 95% liberal. It's a 95% liberal kingdom. And as much as I come from a community where I cannot say we depend on the oil producing companies, even though we are supposed to, there are other people in the region also that their livelihood depends on these companies. I'll give you an example. Like, for instance, Chevron has their location in Escravos, and 90% of the people in that town work on this Escravos field. So if you now tell them we are taking this away from them and you want to be doing it with something, you have to be able to let them understand why their livelihood is taken from them. But they need to also realize that it is for the positive, it is not a negative reason. So when you talk about the socio-economic benefits, we need to be able to transform the ideas of it just being oil into the ideas of you have to trade to do other things, not just waiting to be an oil worker or an oil rig worker. We need to be able to get to that point. Oil isn't going to last forever. We need to make people understand that it isn't going to last forever. And so when the companies move on, because they will move on very soon to the next big thing, what do we have left for them? Where do we go from there? We need to make people understand this. I personally, come from, like I said, come from a very, very, very impacted community. I shed tears when I have to see how run down my community has been. And for me, I will gladly take the next opportunity to make sure that that oil stops coming from where it's being taken. I will gladly give people, sell an alternative to them to make sure that we stop the impassion. I don't know if they are putting up pictures. That is my community in UK. We are an estuary town. It's a town that is key to every import oil in the Niger, in the river. The place that's called the river, which leads to the shopping areas. And we have close to 14 oil wells. I think there are only 2 of them that are caught. The rest of them are being drilled. And the devastation is a lot. So when you talk about socio-economic impassion, the negativity is really serious for us. We need to be able to foster an inclusive. We need to be able to foster an inclusive experiment or alternative to be able to take us to the next, to a just energy transition.
The first question about how to integrate watches. It's a question that we've asked many of our communities, we've asked also communities in other parts of Africa, and also in places like Latin America. And what we hear constantly is that the people are yearning to be heard, but our governments are somehow unable to listen to the people. And those who are elected to represent our people, communities happily go back to get feedback from those communities. Sometime in August, we were in an oil community in Uganda, and we're discussing the issue of loss and damage, which is very popular here at the top. And the people said, if loss and damage ever happens, they must consult them, and they want to decide what they want and how they're going to use the money. But when the government listen to the people, that is a big question. And another place I asked the Minister of Energy, I was in the community that was protesting against mining. And as the Minister of Energy of that country, are you listening to the people at all? And he told me that their law does not give them details about how to conduct consultations. So this was a question that I could not argue with. It was not by the law of his country, but I know he was just avoiding the issue. And so we need to, and I'm very happy that we have this event here at this talk, and we have Chief from Warri Kingdom right here with us. We need to make deliberate efforts to listen to our people, to visit them, to integrate with them, to stay with them, to live with them, and really listen to what they are going through. Now, there's an example of a community that I believe has been totally ignored in Nigeria. Ignored for 3.5 years. There was an oil well explosion at Ororo 1 and Owoye in Ondo State in May 2020. That well has been burning and spinning day and night for 3.5 years. Reports in newspapers, nobody's believing nothing, and the fire could be stopped within a few weeks. And so I don't know what needs to be done really to have people heard. They're just be crying, so they are scared to talk, and they're just suffering in silence. Now, the issue of what needs to be done about justice in the just transition. The justice in the just transition, that word justice is very critical. That means it must be full consultation with those who are suffering the impacts of extractive industry, whether you are extracting oil or you are extracting minerals to make the green energy we are talking about. Because whether it's renewable energy or dirty energy, the resource is going to be taken from somewhere. Are those people involved in the conversation? Are they on the table? This is the big question. We've got 2 major reports stating about what is wrong with the environment. We've got a report by UNEP and the Biodiversity and Environment Report, which was published in May this year. Have we heard anything about it? No response. It's just silent as if it's nothing. Meanwhile, people are living in an environment with hydrocarbon pollution 1 million times above World Health Standard, above safe standard. I don't know about it. I'm not sure how loud we have to shout before we are heard. But I think the possibility is that our communities must hold their representatives accountable. We must insist that they should have a conversation. And those who represent the people should also have a change of mind.
Anything I want to recognize Dr. Foleke, who actually started top one, and he's on this today, and it's very important that we recognize him. Thank you very much. Who made some of us to be where we are today. Having said that, gender issues are critical issues. When you talk of energy, although most of the people, when you talk about gender issues, they look at it from the perspective of only women. They don't understand the concept of gender. I'm not here to discuss the concept of gender. However, I need everyone to know that when we're talking about gender, gender is both men and women, the physically challenged, the elderly, children, people with disabilities. So how can they change? And of course, the energy sources impact on all genders matters involved. It's just to say that how energy issues impact on the female gender is different from the way it impacts on others. Especially women have had time in the wake of this climate crisis to travel kilometers to look for firewood, to travel kilometers to look for water for usage, especially at home. Aside from that, our children, our daughters, who are young, both boys and girls, most of them have been dropping out of school because of looking for firewood, looking for water to cook for the house. These are critical issues that we need to take on board. Now, when we talk about energy, before I came here, I was doing a kind of research on fragility and conflict. It is so sad to note that most of the gender issues in fragility and conflict are not taken into consideration. The women who are engaged in the secular economy, who are providing a lot for the community, nobody thinks about them. That they are contributing to the gross domestic product of the country. Nobody knows. We cannot quantify that. How do we assess that? These are critical issues that we need to look at. But at the same time, the SMEs that are out there, they are facing a lot of challenges. And what are these challenges? Multiple taxation. From the local government to the states, you go there, I give a typical example. 2 months ago, I traveled to home and I was coming back. I wanted to buy goods. I entered the village market. When I paid for the goods, the woman had to pay tax for that goods. And they asked me to also pay tax for buying the goods. And they also asked me to pay for the road, tax for the road of the goods. And that is how much the SMEs and the people, women, are facing in that regard. In Abuja, you see them, most of the boys that are selling akara on the streets, they tax people, the Abuja Environmental Protection or whatever thing it is, they are being harassed daily. And these are people that are contributing to the gross domestic product of Nigeria. And yet they are being harassed. So how do we address this? The government needs to do something about it because it's becoming a shame. And yet you want your country to develop. How will they develop when you only think of the big industrialized organizations? Development comes from these smaller organizations who are doing incredible, who are in the circular economy, contributing to our GDP. And yet they are not being acknowledged. They are being harassed everything. These are socio-economic issues that need to be tackled. And unless we go back to the drawing board, we will not be able to become that giant which we say we are as Nigeria. We need to recognize the SMEs. We need to recognize that entrepreneurs that are on the streets selling, because whether we like it or not, they are contributing a lot. So in terms of energy, we really have to do something about it. Giving cooking gas or cylinders is not enough. Where do they get the money to buy the gas when the gas is not even available? That is the emptying and distribution of cylinders to women in the community. And we talk about issues of energy, renewable energy. Is that the renewable energy? How do they get the money? Some women in their life have not seen 5,000 in rural communities. And yet we are talking about giving them cylinders. Where is the gas? Where would they even buy the gas? Where the gas are not, the things are not in the communities. Thank you.
Now, how is the National Council of Climate Change planning to address the gaps in community engagement and local inclusion identified in Nigeria's current energy transition plan? But more importantly, as the energy transition plan is evolving, and you and I have had several discussions about how that plan is evolving at the moment. How are you going to make it to be adaptable and responsive to the evolving needs of impacted communities like the ones who are speaking here today, especially the places where they have experienced this kind of environmental degradation?
Yes, Council on Climate Change, Dr. Sami Tairo. I was here, but was attending another function at the moment.
civil war programs in Nigeria. Now, the role of the NCCC is to coordinate climate change actions in Nigeria. And the NCCC has mandate to put in the policies, guidelines, and regulations that can help the nation achieve their targets and objectives around climate action. Now, the Council is very conscious of the fact that there should be justice and just transition. They're very conscious of that fact. And in order to do that, they are taking their time to ensure that most of the instruments that will emerge to guide the way and manner we approach climate change, organization, implementation, and to attain our target is done inclusively. One of the key documents that will help the country to achieve this objective is the National Climate Change Action Plan. Now, that action plan is supposed to incorporate all the strategies and plans and projects that will enable Nigeria to meet its NDC targets and its national objectives. Now, what the climate change, what the Council has therefore done in order to ensure that special groups like people from the Niger Delta and in other parts of the country are not left behind, they have decided to use a three-sector approach in developing these documents. So three-sector means that they bringing on board the public, the private, civil society, and the communities together in a platform to help formulate these policies so that everybody's interest and their nuances and their aspirations are captured in the action plan. By the way, the action plan will include the activities and the plans and the programs that will be implemented in order to meet our targets. So, in order not to leave anybody behind, the Council, I think in November, called a meeting to put together a partnership. This partnership has come from private, public, and civil society, and include the relevant partners, so that as they start to formulate these policies, both communities, the private sector, and indeed the people themselves, they are thinking their ideas will now inform the way that document will look like and how to implement it. So I just want to assure you that because of the strategy that this Council is taking, whatever fears that people in Nigeria have, should be discountenanced. And I also want to say that the people of the Niger Delta, no doubt, have supported the country through the exploration and production of oil in their communities, and we're all aware of the spoiling of the environment and all that. But I want to say that in order to get just transition, there are certain things that must be in place. So you need to articulate your plan as a region, how you think that what are the plans and programs that you think can best ameliorate the situation you have in the moment, and what can take you ahead of the pack. But the good news is that I know that there are some opportunities already existing in the area. For instance, I'm aware that we have what they call community development boards at the moment from most of the biodiversity communities. So, and they already have plans. So I would suggest that the people representing them can go back and articulate this plan that already in the community and local government into one plan, so they can come and embed it in the national action plan. Because that's the better process of ensuring that what you really think, should happen in your area can be embedded in the national document that they've implemented. So the window is still there, and the council has made it open for all of us to participate. So that's one opportunity. The second opportunity I see is that the just transition we need funding, and most of the funding that's coming from climate finance will have to do with funds that you have internally, and the one you can use a matching external capital that will come in. We know that there is the host community development trust fund that the PIB has made available. So I would suggest that both our activists and our community leaders sit down, see the area some seed money that can trigger further financing, to sit down and articulate the issues, emerging issues. If we transition from firewood to cooking gas, how does that happen? If we want to repurpose the flares to produce industries, how can we use that to process LPG, CNG, and all that? So there's some fund already that can be used properly in order to ensure that indeed the region is the forefront of the transition.
In the energy transition plan, I think that is again putting on due burden on the and kind of pushing a responsibility for drafting an adequate plan for the nation to communities without going to the communities. It's a duty of that board, of the council, to go to interact with the communities and hear, not wait in Abuja and expect somebody in Burutu or somewhere to send a document to you before, or if they don't send a document, then they will not be heard. I don't think that is what we should be talking about. And then, quickly, this debate can take many hours, but the PIA, the host community for the PIA is a movie trap. Now, we know that the oil companies are the ones determining who to host community. They are the ones who select the executive officials in those trust boards, on the boards. And then the same law says that if anything happens to all infrastructure in the area, the community will be held responsible. This collective criminalizing the communities who may not community embassy will have the community business who will bring a pipeline. And if the criminal commits a crime, that person should be held accountable. But what it really means that the host community fund may end up not getting to the community. Because if anything happens, the bulk of the money would be used in repairing or fixing the situation. That law looks like something drafted by the oil companies against the interests of the local communities and slightly in the interest of the government, slightly. Because if you use 30% of the profit from that sector to look for more oil, it means that we don't believe that it's climate change. It means we don't believe that it should be a transition. But we are going to be investing to look for. We are not just taking the one you have already. You're going to spend 30% of whatever you make to look for new oil in the time when the world is moving. I think it's a big problem. And with the pollution, no cleanup of the entire Niger Delta, there can be no just transition without a cleanup. None at all.
My name is Princess Zahra Mustafa Ali. I'm into e-mobility in Nigeria and a climate change expert. One of the ladies here spoke about promoting cooking gas amongst women. And one thing I've noticed with a lot of the sessions in the Nigerian pavilion especially is the fact that our solutions to some of the problems that are being raised are already locally within other states. We need to start encouraging exchange of knowledge. Yesterday we were here and the Kaduna State panel spoke about producing something called the brick, whereby they use the back of the sugar cane and the back of the yams and the middle of the corn, the cob, to actually turn that into something they call a brick that they can burn in exchange exactly the briquettes. So this shows us that many of our problems that we're coming to COP28 to sign or to discover, and locally, the solutions are locally within our country. You also need to understand that Nigeria is peculiar. So when you come here looking for solutions, you're not going to find it, because the problems, the challenges they face in, say, Asia or the USA or in Europe, those are not the same problems that we face in Nigeria. So I think generally across board, all the officials, stakeholders, we need to work more within our, within the context of the Nigerian, environment, working state to state. There's so many things and information that's available in the Niger Delta that we do not have in the north, and vice versa. So please, let's look more inwards. And when we come, rather than presenting problems like this, we should be bringing opportunities that, hopefully, if we had any foreign entities, they would want to keep in. So I think those are the critical things that I keep observing with those sessions.
My longest time friend, 50%. And sparring partner, 50% Imobasi. And other members of the high table. It is my pleasure to be given the most difficult assignment to close down and close a very interesting event. I am most impressed by the turnout for this particular side event, as well as several others. And this is a clear indication that the journey towards making everyone conversant with and familiar with what he needs to do or what he needs to know about climate change is beginning to penetrate deep into the fabric of the society. I'm sure most of us are aware of the fact that there has been some misinformation, misconception, as well as sheer fabrication of information to the tune of trying to discredit what we are doing here. What we have recorded in the first 2 days of the conference, particularly the high-level segment, and what we also witnessed in this particular pavilion is testimony to the fact that, one, we are on track, two, we are already harvesting the results of our labor. That is in the person of our dear President, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, whose mere presence has triggered several goodies that have happened. For those of you that may not be fully aware, day before yesterday, in this particular pavilion, a gigantic project was put in place and put back on track with the signing of agreement between Siemens, as the Germans call it, and Siemens, as most Nigerians refer to it, for a project in the neighborhood of several hundred millions of euros that will ensure that our electricity should and will be updated with an additional 12 gigawatts of electricity. That agreement was signed here between Siemens and the Presidential Power Initiative, PPI, under the direct supervision of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the Chancellor of Germany. In this same room also, we saw the signing of an MOU between Infracop and Solage. Solage is from one of the Scandinavian countries, whereby they will be investing in another project with Infracop to the tune of about $750 million. We've also seen the signing of the MOU between the National Council on Climate Change and the Africa Climate Foundation to provide technical and financial support by helping to mobilize additional funding that will support Nigeria's climate change journey through the National Council on Climate Change in the areas of policies, regulations, manuals, etc.
and also mobilizing finance for climate change actions on the ground. I can go on and on, but this is evening. Majority of the participants, I do understand. The last time they saw a bottle of water or teacup was about 4 hours ago. So there's a need for us to round up and begin to attend some of the remaining meetings that we have. I want to commend each and everyone that has one role or the other in putting this together, and also to acknowledge the fact that today in this very pavilion we have one of our own who used to be just an ordinary staff like you and I, being elevated to the level of the Commissioner for Environment and Climate Change in a state. Commissioner, you better stand up so that we can see you. Last year by this time, our director who is seated here was the one coordinating exactly what we are doing, dishing out instructions to her, and also making sure that our relationship with the 2050 pathway that supported Nigeria to produce the long-term low emissions development strategy went smoothly. And that document was, by the special grace of God, on day one of this conference. It was launched and it has been deposited with the UNFCCC. So whoever loves Nigeria, if he is sincere and wants to be part of this journey, help us elaborate on these achievements and forget whether we brought 2,000 or 10,000 delegates to the conference. Once again, thank you and God bless.